Good morning, people. Good morning. Hello. Good morning, Mr. Shola. Good morning, Temita. Your morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, so straight up, like you already know, we have a guest today. So I'm just gonna put him up straight up. So we get started.
Hello
Good
there.
morning. Hello.
How are you doing today?
Great. And you?
Yeah, I'm doing excellent. Hey, thanks for having me on the session today.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome.
Good. So I've been watching. It's great to see all the stuff you're doing, by the way, with the saxophone school in Nigeria. Fantastic. I know we've got lots of sax school members in Nigeria, so I've been watching what you're doing, and it's really great. All the live streams you've been doing, fantastic. Good on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice playing too.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, so
what should we have a chat about today?
Today we're looking to have you talk about our mouthpiece usage, the right mouthpiece, the right size of reed for the right level of player, you know, how to actually select mouthpieces.
Yeah, that's a great question actually, Sax Gold. And you know, when you're with your students, what sort of level are they at?
Okay, they are a different level. We have mostly the beginning level. So I kind of like put the beginning level into two categories. The one that is actually just starting from the grassroots level,
yep.
And then the one that has been playing for some time but still on the beginning stage.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah.
Well, you know, same with me. I mean, we've got thousands of students who are in that same sort of category, and some who are maybe advanced beginners up to intermediate stage, but are also going out and playing with other people in community bands or at jam sessions, or getting bands together and playing in pubs and things. You know, not at the moment, of course. But the biggest mistake that I see people make with mouthpieces is choosing a mouthpiece that's too bright or too open. I mean, I'll give you an example. So, for example, you know, I'm sure you talk to your students about mouthpieces all the time, but the two main categories or the main differentiators are the tip opening and then the internal shape, right? So I play on a size 8 mouthpiece, which is a pretty open mouthpiece. So that means there's a big gap between the tip of the mouthpiece and the reed. So that gap there is quite big. But you know, an average size is somewhere around maybe a size 6. So different brands number it in different ways. I'm a Theo Wane artist, so I play Theo Wane mouthpieces. But like this is a Dave Budala mouthpiece, for example, or a Yanagisawa mouthpiece. So they all have different numbering systems, but the tip opening is one of the things that is talked about most often. So if you're unsure about what mouthpiece to go for, there's two things to look for. First of all, don't get a number that's too big. You're better off to stick somewhere around a 5 or a 6, maybe a 7, unless you're more experienced. The second thing to check out is the internal shape of the mouthpiece, right? So, a lot of people, let me see if I've got a good example here. So this Dave Budala mouthpiece, I mean, I love this, and I've used this on thousands of shows. But if you look inside there, can you see all the different shapes? So those are what we call baffles. And when you have shapes inside the mouthpiece like that, it makes the air go faster, and it makes the sound a lot brighter. But it also can make it harder to control. So these are mouthpieces to avoid if you're just getting started on saxophone. In contrast, have a look at the inside of this one. I'm not sure if you can see in there.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's really open, isn't it?
Really open.
Really open. It's a lovely, nice, smooth shape in there. So this is called a slant sig from Theo Wane, which is a replica of a classic, you know, 1940s, 50s mouthpiece, but wonderful. So the cool thing about a mouthpiece like this is that you can do all sorts with this. You could play, get a lovely Ben Webster jazzy sound, or you could play a bit more powerful as well. Another good example. This is a bit of a crusty old mouthpiece that I've had for years, which is made by Yanagisawa. And if you look inside this one, I don't know if you can see it in this way. So
yeah, I can see it.
okay, so it's a different shaped chamber inside there, but again, it's very, very open. And I'm not sure what the number is on this actually, maybe a 7, but this mouthpiece I've used to play with big bands, doing proper jazzy stuff, doing pop shows, doing West End shows, doing even classical playing. You can do everything with this one mouthpiece. So, best advice is find a mouthpiece like this that's quite open, not too big here, and then they'll be versatile. And then the focus has to be on building your embouchure. So that's definitely
building your embouchure. That works too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other question you had, Sax Gold, was about reeds, and I think it's super important to find a reed that complements your mouthpiece. So it's not just your mouthpiece choice; it's your reed choice too. I'm a ligature artist. I play ligature signature reeds, so these are synthetic reeds.
Okay.
And I just like these because they last a long time. So I don't have to change my reeds very often, which is great. But the most important thing is to find a reed that seals really well on your mouthpiece and isn't too hard. Okay. So I don't know if you suggest the same to your students, but I normally say 2 to 2.5 is about as hard as you need to go with your reeds. What do you say?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's perfect. Some people tend to go for really high ones, and then it becomes difficult. I remember the first time I tried a size 5. Ooh! I couldn't even. I could not even express myself. I had to just take it out and just go back to 3. I use 3. I use Vandarin, by the way.
Great.
I use size 3. But sometimes I fall back to 2.5.
Yep. Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Someone is asking a question.
Yep.
Somebody said, what's the role of ligature on the mouthpiece?
Well, another brilliant question. You know what? Ligatures, there are so many different types of ligatures. I mean, look, so there's the metal ones, there's this fancy Silverstein Works one. These are super expensive. There's normal Rovner ones like these.
Oh, yeah.
They sent me this. I didn't buy it, by the way. Look, you know what? Ligatures, they can make a small difference. The most important thing is that it holds the reed on without
to the mouthpiece.
Yeah, without constricting the actual reed. So this mouthpiece here has a built-in ligature. I don't think it's important to get too caught up on your ligature, because you know what? To be perfectly honest, the differences you hear as a player in your ligature are really going to be apparent to you, and less so to the audience. So they might make you feel better about playing, which is wonderful, but to the audience it's not going to make a lot of difference. I've even got somewhere here, I made my own ligature. And I use this one sometimes.
Oh, you did?
So, you know.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen you use that.
Yeah, it was my my coronavirus lockdown project. But anyway, so don't get too caught up on your ligature. In fact, don't get too caught up on your mouthpiece. Find a mouthpiece and a reed and a ligature that works for you, and then focus on this.
Oh.
Yeah.
So how do you develop a proper mouth positioning? Embouchure. What's the right one? There are different ones. Like, I think you should answer.
There's lots of different schools of thought. We did a session for our Sax School members last week with an incredible player called Andy Snitzer, who tours with Billy Joel and Sting, and Paul Simon, and all Jay-Z, all these sorts of people. And he was telling me that he uses very loose, relaxed embouchure, which worked for him. I think it's important to be relaxed with your embouchure, but the most important thing is to be consistent with it and to spend time working on developing it every single day. Okay, so we all know the basic concept of how to form an embouchure. So I don't really want to go too much into that, but I think not being too tight is important. Thinking about having a good seal around the mouthpiece, but keeping it as loose as you can. That still makes a seal and lets the reed vibrate, right?
Yeah.
So that way the reed can vibrate and make the best sound that you can. But after that, it's down to you to spend time to develop these muscles. So it's like going to the gym, you know? Mm-hmm. So you need to build them up. So things that I work on and with my students is we're really big on warm-up exercises. It's super important. You probably talk about this too, right?
Yes, of course.
Love
That's
warm-ups.
what, yeah, that's what this is actually about. Warm-up exercises. You know, we share warm-up exercises that you can add to your routines and all of that. So we're actually looking to have you share some with us
Yeah, sure. Well, you know, my favorite
today.
simple, quick warm-up that everyone, I think, should be doing all the time, I do it all the time, is just
Okay.
starting right down at the bottom of your saxophone on low B flat. And
Okay.
I always use my
That's
tuner. I've got my tuner on my phone,
okay.
and I'm looking to just get a nice, solid, long, low B flat so that the sound is very full. And then once I get that note right, then I'll work up in
Okay.
intervals of fifths and octaves. So for example, from low B flat up to octave B flat,
Okay.
back down low B flat up to octave F, down again,
Okay.
back up to double octave B flat, and so forth, right? But with your tuner, so two things. You're using your tuner, and you're also trying to not move this at all. So,
Oh.
and it's hard at the start, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. And it really gives your embouchure a good workout. So, eventually, when you do it on low B flat, low B, low C,
Yeah.
so eventually you can develop the strength here. You've really got to take your time with it. Nice long time. But, you know, probably 5 minutes of that, and you'll be amazed at the change that you see in the embouchure.
Oh wow.
I think it really helps. I think a lot of people, you find this with your students, a lot of people struggle to get those low notes sounding nice.
Yeah, a lot actually. You know, so people don't tend to get there all the time. So like yesterday, I was taking some of my students on autumn leave, and they had some of them had difficulty with playing the low B, the low C sharp. So I said it's because you don't go there all the time. That's why it's not open yet. So, but every time you have to warm up, you have to always make sure you play from the depth of your horn, you know, to the high pitches. Then the horn begins to open up. What do you think?
100%. I definitely agree with you.
Okay.
And I think
Yeah.
if you're watching this and you're still struggling with those low notes, and the way to approach it is to start on a note that you're comfy with in the middle of your range, like maybe in like G or C, and work your way
Okay.
down to that low C or low B or
Okay.
low B flat. But all the time we've got to be thinking about this, so our embouchure is nice and
Yeah.
relaxed, and also thinking about the quality of our sound. So we need to get the biggest, fattest sound all the time. Because ultimately what we want to do is get the same sound quality in the middle and the bottom and the very top, right? So
Yeah.
when you listen to great jazz players, like I love Coleman Hawkins or Ben Webster, those guys have got such a wonderful sound down the bottom. Even a lot of the commercial guys do as well. And it's because they spent a lot of time working on their embouchure, but over the
Yeah.
whole range. So yeah, super important. That'd be my top tip.
So does the embouchure changes, like the positioning, does it change if you have to take a high pitch or a low pitch, or is it constant for every time?
What we're aiming for is for it to be the same all the time.
Okay,
It's very
same all
difficult
the
to
time.
do that. So even I move my embouchure a little bit, but we need
Okay.
to try and keep it as consistent as possible, because that way you're going to get a more consistent sound, and also it makes you more flexible. So when you need to do
Okay.
things where you're going, moving quickly
Uh,
as registers, you're not having to go like
oh yeah.
strange things here, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
the thing we should be working toward as an ideal in our practice is to keep
Yeah.
this as constant as possible. Yeah.
Okay.
So lots of things. I mean, there's a million different ways you can do a warm-up, but that's one of the things that I use all the time. And it's so easy to do
Okay.
if you've got your tuner with you too.
Oh yeah. So getting a tuner is very, very,
Oh
very
yeah, you know
important.
what? There's tons of apps, tuner apps, but I always have a tuner on my phone or on
Yeah.
my iPad, and I'm working with it all the time because
Okay.
everyone's saxophone. I mean, look, to be honest with you, this saxophone, I've had this like 30 years, and there's notes on this.
You said over 30 years?
Yeah, I know. I know. I've had it actually.
Video.
I think I've had this 28 years. I've had this one.
Oh.
I got this alto in 1987.
Oh, that's the year I was born.
Yeah. That was 1987 was my first year at. I went to this conservatorium in Australia, so I was at university first year. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm only 35 now though, so.
Oh wow.
No, just joking. But what I was going to say is that so I've been playing this saxophone a long time, but I still struggle with tuning on this saxophone because some notes are out of tune. It's just, and every saxophone is the same, right? Every saxophone has got slight tuning issues in the range. So, for example, for me, an E, octave E is always a bit out. So I need to work on the tuner all the time to make sure I'm, used to that. And the other thing that's really important for your students, and I'm sure you say this already, is that when you go as a player, if you're just getting started and you're playing a lot by yourself, and then you make the progression to go and play with a band, that tuning is going to be so important to you. It's essential that you can play in tune with other musicians. And it's not when you're just playing by yourself, you don't think about it. But once you're with other people, you know yourself, right? Super important.
Yeah, true. Super important.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
That's amazing. So so thanks everyone that's on with us today. I don't know if you have questions, you can just put it up and then we would ask him. But I think before that, maybe you want to play something for us while the questions.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you what I'll do. Something. So I'm working on all sorts of different things myself in my playing all the time, and I like to try all different types of, all different styles. So I like playing jazz, but I like playing commercial music as well. And something I've been working on a lot with my own practice and with my students actually in Sax School is learning commercial, like pop tunes, but by listening to singers. So listening to singers is a great way to understand the vocal style. And we all as saxophone players listen to other saxophone players, but I think it's also good to listen to singers or even other instrumentalists, like listening to trumpet players or guitar players, piano players, to get inspiration on how you're going to play. So I put a video out on YouTube the other day where I was looking at Whitney Houston's tune.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a lovely tune. Man, though, and if you listen to Whitney sing that like really closely, it's amazing. There's so many intricacies in her voice, with the way she does little decorations, or the way she breathes, or the way she finishes and starts notes, and all that stuff is really interesting. I think as a saxophone player to check out. Do you ever look at that sort of stuff yourself?
Sometimes I try to pay attention and get to analyze some of these tunes, and see how I can best express them. Yeah,
it's really good. Even if you're into jazz, like listen to the jazz singers. So it just gives you a different angle. So I'll play a little bit of that, hey?
Okay. Oh wow. I can feel it in my heart. Beautiful.
Thank you very much,
Nice.
Sax. Hey, really nice to join you today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to have you. Everybody here, have encountered you one way or the other. They've stumbled on your lessons on YouTube. I mean, when I first started, I saw lots of your lessons. Someone was telling me last night, that he actually learned to play the chromatic scale from your lesson. So you have actually affected lots of generation, and you're still affecting generation positively, and it's really awesome. So many places that you have not gotten to, but your works like all over the world, all over the globe. So I have a few questions. We're rounding up now. I'll just read out one. So someone said, how far in should you push the mouthpiece into the neck cock, and how does this affect your sound?
Okay, excellent question. Now you look actually on this saxophone at the moment, so I'm kind of just experimenting with this mouthpiece. Normally I use this mouthpiece. Okay. So I'm experimenting with this. This is called a 301A Durga. And it's quite a big open mouthpiece, a bit like what I was telling you about with this one, right? So it takes more control with the tuning. So for me, I have it out that far, which is quite a long way out for me. You can actually see there's a line on there where I normally have my mouthpiece. So as a general rule, I would say normally you have like about a centimetre is a rough sort of guide as a starting point. So if you're brand new and you're unsure about your tuning, starting with about a centimetre of cork is a good guideline, and then use your tuner and lots of warming up practice to find the place where you can be most in tune over your whole range. Now there's a couple of things though that are important to remember about this, because it really depends on the brand of saxophone and your cork. So like I said, I've had this for a long time, so I've had a lot of different neck corks on here, and sometimes a repairer might put a longer cork on. So therefore, it's no longer 1 centimetre, it might be 1.5 centimetres, right? So it depends on the brand of the saxophone, it depends on how it's been repaired in the past. But most important is, use your tuner and find the place that works for you. Okay, so one last question. So what would be your advice for maybe not a beginner player, a saxophonist that want to venture into jazz music, into playing jazz? So what's the kickoff point? Where do you start from? Kickoff point. Great question. Well, so the very first thing to do is to do loads of listening. So have an idea of the sort of music that you like to listen to, and the artists that you like too, because there's so many different great jazz players that you can check out, whether from different periods. So definitely the very, very, very first thing to do is do loads of listening and find people that really excite you. Like for me, when I was a kid still in primary school, it was the Glenn Miller Orchestra. I love that big band sound and those sort of tenor players and alto players. And then later it was guys like Coltrane, or like I was saying before, Ben Webster and Dexter Gordon and all those sort of, they had a sound that turned me on. So I listen to that, I get excited, right? And that's what I want to sound like. So once you've got an idea of the sound that you want, then exploring things like, starting with the blues is a great point. So using the blues scales, getting familiar with blues scales, understanding how to start creating your own solos using simple notes. So what I do with my students is keep things really simple at the start. So we don't have to learn loads of theory at the start. It's more about developing our creativity. Okay, so starting with simple things like blues scales, even pentatonic scales, choosing 2 or 3 notes and simple rhythms, but to prove the idea of making up a great solo using just a few notes. So it needs to be complicated. Most people get caught up with using too many notes at the start and making it too complicated and missing the important thing, which is to create lovely melodies and to be really rhythmical. So that's my best advice. Start really simply. Really simple. And then do lots of listening.
lots of listening. I think that's key. Lots of listening, and then before you eventually
Yeah, because it's tough,
play.
you know, if you want to start, if you want to be, I get this from students a lot that say to me, I want to be, why don't I sound like Grover Washington? Why don't I sound like Charlie Parker when I play? Or why don't I sound like David Sanborn? But they don't really, you know, if you've never listened to those people, and I mean really listen, a bit like when I was talking before about listening to Whitney Houston and her singing. When you're listening to a saxophone player that you love, you need to really listen to every little detail. And you should be able to imagine that sound in your head. So when you pick up your saxophone, you've got to switch gears and imagine that you are getting that sound out of your saxophone every single time you play. And I think it's that extra level of focus that makes the difference. And it'll make playing a lot more fun for you, and you'll get to that goal a lot quicker. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. So one last word. So what would you leave for us? What would you say to us? One last word for us.
Have fun playing saxophone. That's the most important thing. You know, as I'm always saying to my students, the most important thing is to enjoy the process of learning, because there's there's so many different directions you can go with your saxophone, and I think you need to find the music that you love and focus on that and follow it through and enjoy picking up the saxophone every day. So I think it's important to be systematic about how you practice. I talk a lot to my students about that, about having a routine, doing your warm-up, but also working on new stuff that's challenging you and working on stuff that's fun. But most importantly, enjoying the process of playing music and setting yourself goals to go along. So, for example, in our community, we've got thousands of students, and I get them all to share videos of their playing in our private community. So it's a great goal to work towards. So even if you've only just been playing for a couple of weeks, you can make a video of yourself playing the first tune you've learned, and that's a big step, right? But when you've done it, you feel so good. And if you can get some feedback from your friends or family or from a community like we have in Sax School, and like you have with your community too, it's wonderful, because you feel like you've really achieved something, and that will push you to learn the next tune and then keep moving on. And before you know it, you're out gigging yourself or making records. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. We really have
my pleasure.
We've learned a lot.
My pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'm going to keep watching what you're up to too on Instagram. So really, really great.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep contact. I'm looking forward to coming to your school. By the time the whole pandemic is over, I'll have to stop by. I've been to the UK once.
Have you?
So now that I have this contact, I'm sure definitely going to stop by.
Yeah, well, we should definitely stay in contact.
And take some lessons.
Yeah, well, you have a physical school, right, where people come to? Yeah?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. So for me, what I do, I don't have a physical school. Everything is done online. So that's why we've got. That's why we've got thousands and thousands of students, because there are people in 70 different countries who use the lessons. And but we do things like we do live streaming all the time and all sorts of stuff. I have to get you on one of my sessions at some point. You can tell us about the music scene in Nigeria. Actually, I'd love to hear a bit about that. What's going on locally for you? Obviously not at the moment, but there must be a lot of music going over there.
Yeah, a lot of music going on here. We are trying to do what you guys do, alongside with our own kind of music, Afro beats and all of that, So we're basically exploring and trying to sound really great.
Wonderful. And I'm curious to know, amongst your students, what style of playing are they most interested in?
Most is the Afrobeat. So we have some category, tending towards playing jazz, some tending towards smooth jazz, some tending towards contemporary, some tending towards high life music, or some just have the whole thing combined together. So you call for different aspects, and you're able to, to serve you right. So we're big on music. We play it by ear most of the time. We hear the sound and we just go for it, So because we don't do lots of this all the time, but we try to incorporate that as well. but basically we have fun playing.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Actually, you had a question when we spoke yesterday. You said about reading music, and
Yeah.
would you say that a lot of your students don't read music, or on the process of reading music?
Okay, so most of them are in the process of reading music. Some of them already read music. So because the way we make music here, we don't usually play with this. We just play, you know, from the mind and all of that. We don't usually do so. This is not in our culture, but we are developing this to be part of our culture. So by the time I come to you and you say to me, so we are playing this piece. I'm like, oh, okay. And I look at it, I'm like, okay, let's go, let's play. So we are trying to develop that skill as well. So we are all rounded. Like you take the paper off, we can play. You put the paper before us, we can play.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, it is important to read music, but what the problem in our culture is that there's not enough people that play without music. So a real struggle amongst, I mean, it's a common theme amongst my students in America or England, Australia, is the fear of not having music, the fear of playing without music. Okay, because it's like the complete opposite from the way you approach music, and so I'm constantly working with my people to get them away from reading music. Not that you should. While we are
trying to get into reading music.
Yeah. So it's kind of like different sides of the spectrum, right? So but the thing is, you know, you are encouraging your students to read music more because it is a great way to learn faster, to pick up things. And also, it's a language, right? So for sharing with other musicians, it's your common language. But equally, for me, I'm encouraging players to get away from reading music so that they can be more creative. So you're asking about steps for improvising before. One of the biggest fears for students starting improvising is, I don't know what to play. No one's telling me what notes to play. What do I do? Right? So if you're used to only ever playing with music, like for example, so I, years ago, I did a classical saxophone degree. I was also working as a jazz musician. So I was playing with a symphony orchestra one day, then I'd be going out playing with a big band or doing a pop gig. So I know a lot of classical players who are like proper best in the world players. And a lot of them are terrified of not having any music. And they find that process very difficult. They can play anything that's written down, but without music it's difficult, okay? So, you know, there's got to be a balance between the two. And I think... There's got to be. Yeah. Doing a bit of reading is one... And even with my students, lots of them come to me who do not read music. So I teach a lot of lessons just visually, right? So you can follow my fingers. But I encourage them to learn some basic reading skills as well as to be able to play without music. So I think it's good to have all those parts together. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. I'm really happy we did this. Yeah, I am too. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, I need you guys to just, you know, type in the comment section and say thank you to Mcgill for turning up today. And make sure you follow on his page and on YouTube as well. So if we're going to sign up for your online lesson, how do we do that? Well, just go to our website, which is mcgillmusic.com. Okay, so mcgillmusic.com, and there's some free stuff on there. There's a 14-day trial if you're interested. But there's also stuff at YouTube, YouTube/McGill Music, or Insta, or Facebook, or just Google me, Nigel Mcgill, you'll find me. Yeah, brilliant. Hey, look, thanks so much for having me on today, and you're really welcome. Nice to meet you. I'm looking forward to catching up with you again soon. Thank you. All right, cool. Have a nice time. See ya. Bye. Yeah, guys. So that's today's warm-up session, and I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you for turning up. I'll see you next Saturday, maybe, or maybe the next one. But thank you for turning up. I really appreciate it. Bye.